Welcome to the TebZAR Podcast, the light-hearted yet deeply reflective space where we humanize high achievers through informative conversations. We love to hear about positive South African stories, patriots who inspire us, especially those with whom we can share light-hearted moments. I'm TebZAR, a left-brainer by day, a right-brainer by night. And in today's episode, I've got a very interesting guest. I saw his profile and I said, definitely he has to be here. I'm not going to introduce him. I won't do justice. The stuff he's done, very empowering, and it's actually exemplar stuff. So I'm very proud to have him here. I hope you stay tuned because you'll learn a lot. And I think he's got quite a powerful nuggets that he needs to share. So I can guarantee you'll definitely have some nuggets that you can take away and maybe just improve your life a bit here and there. My brother, welcome.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you for honoring the invite.
No,
I had a small eye problem like two days ago.
Sure.
So, I said, look, I'll bring my shades. But I realized there was a second reason why I need to bring my shades. You bring too much light into here.
Look at you, bro. I thought you were just being too cool for school, man. I was like, I should have got on the memo, man.
No. I got to pitch up someday.
Come on, man.
You don't have to say it.
Yeah.
You must be a stylist at heart.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but thanks, man.
Appreciate it, bro.
I watched your podcast,
Yeah.
a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
And I thought, geez, man, there are people like this, they're out there actually, talking on stuff that's, very sensitive.
Yeah.
And I can imagine for you it could be quite daring because, you like the poster boy of husbandry,
Man,
if there's ever such a term.
I don't know. That's hard. That's pressure.
It is.
That is pressure, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, man, thank you for taking the cross.
Yeah. That's more pressure. You're just not making it easy on me, bro. Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
I'm just setting the scene.
Come on, man.
Yeah. So my brother, for those who haven't seen your, podcast, if you could just share about yourself.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Thanks again for just inviting me here, man. And I appreciate what you're doing. And just excited to see how it's going to grow and continue impacting people. I think we need a lot of positive voices, who will speak into this madness called the internet that we have. And I think this is incredible stuff that you're doing here, brother. So shout outs to you, man.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
So name Blaque, and I think I'll probably introduce myself with a couple of things, and I'll start, and I'll lay them out in order of priority. So follower of Jesus first, and my love for Jesus inspires my love for my wife, and the love I have for my wife inspires the love that I have for my kid. And I think it's those loves that help me show up in other areas of my life, So being a pastor, being a podcaster, being an MC, public speaker, and an undercover stylist, So I think those loves kind of inspire, how I show up everywhere else. Currently just in the process of finishing off my master's in religion and cultural apologetics. I believe in this country, and I believe in the future of this country. And I think the future of this country is going to be solely dependent on the structure of the family and the strength of the family. I think Parliament will do a lot of great things, but I think this country will change around the dinner table. And I think that's where I've been called to just encourage guys like you and me, husbands, fathers, and just encourage us with one simple thing: stay at home, love your wife, care for your kids, and I think we'll change South Africa for the better. Well
said.
Sure.
So that husband podcast, you were obviously pointing at that particular husband.
Sure.
So that husband is an exemplar of note.
Yeah.
You know, tell us what's inspired that
Yeah.
particular name
Sure,
for
man.
your podcast.
So two things that inspired that name. Number one, just my own story. So born and raised in the east of Johannesburg, Tembisa to be precise, and born to a teenage mom. She was 15 when she had me, and I think my dad had just finished matric, or just about to finish matric. And you know, I grew up in what I call just humble, real dope beginnings, because you know I was privileged to be a kid that had parents that poured into him, you know, in every respect. And I think more particularly when it comes to relationships between father and son, you know, I had the privilege out of all the kids that were around me, my cousins, kids in my street, kids in my neighborhood, you know, dare to say even kids in, you know, extended spaces like church, school. I had my dad was present, you know, and he was present in every respect. So emotionally present, financially present, spiritually present. You know, I say that my emotional IQ was developed by the relationship I had with my dad. You know, so he was there, man, presently loving us, loved my mother in front of me, affectionately so, age appropriately, you know, and he was just a hero. I knew I wanted to grow up and be married because I saw my dad. You know, and how he cared for us. Age 15, my dad flipped. Day and night, you know. So this guy that I'm describing now, by the time I turned 15, on a very particular day, it was around March, I go to school in the morning, you know, come back probably around 2:30. There's people in my house. My dad is selling the house, kicked out my mom, selling everything, you know, from the spoon to curtains down to the Ringo CDs that we had, you know. So I'm like, such a jarring experience. And I think it was the first time in my 15 years that my dad did not explain to me what was going on. You know, again, this was a man who was presently shaping me, training me, discipling me to be the kind of man that I think society would want to have. And he would walk me through every decision he would make, whether that's a financial decision, a spiritual decision, you know, relational decision. He'd walk me through all those things. You know, down to disciplining me. My dad explained the sense of justice even when I did things that were wrong. He would sit me down and explain what a crime is. What justice is, you know, and why discipline is an act of love, so that I don't become a thug one day, you know. And it was the first time he just didn't explain, and he said, we'll have a sit down, and 22 years later, we haven't had that sit down. You know, recently I met him, we kind of spoke about the thing, but didn't get the answers for why that day happened. So, in a nutshell, that's why, man, I created this podcast to change the stories of many black boys so that they don't experience what I experienced, you know. And I always say that I had the unfortunate privilege of living on both sides, you know, so having a present father and then spending the rest of my life without a present father. And so I've kind of seen both sides of this narrative, and man, I prefer the first 15 years of my life, and I want to inspire dads, fathers, husbands particularly, to stay at home and care for their wives so that their kids don't have my story. So that's the first part, long part. Second part is my faith. You know, that husband is Jesus. And I think when I was in the wilderness trying to figure out what being a man is, here's my dad who coached me on what being a man is. And then I get into the field, age 15, you know, you're supposed to kind of start the journey of manhood as a boy. And my coach wasn't there. And so I looked for many coaches, you know, and rap presented a bunch of voices that were not good coaches, you know, and how they shaped my worldview when it comes to money, to women, to sex, to the family structure. There were one or two things that were positive that I think I put in my arsenal. But looking back, I'm like, man, like rap didn't formulate my worldview that could be beneficial for the kind of man that I desired to be, you know. And so Jesus found me in that space, man. And yeah, he brought me around a bunch of husbands who loved their wives, cared for their kids, and I just spent time with those guys and learned from them, and drank from their wells, and so now with the podcast, that's what I'm trying to show people. Hey, listen, we live in a country where my story is very common. At least after age 15, that's very common. And if this thing is going to change, I think we need a model of what that husband is going to be. And I think Jesus presents a better model, man. And so I'm trying to say, let's see how we can sit around his feet and hear what he's going to say to us about being a sacrificial, loving, caring, selfless kind of husband. And that's the kind of husbands I think we need.
Despite what happened, you still talk about your dad in a positive light. It sounds like you found closure.
Yeah, it's my process of forgiveness, So I realized 2 years into marriage that I hadn't forgiven my dad, and some people might disagree, but like for me, harboring or holding on to unforgiveness is a poison I'm drinking, because I'm constantly reminded of this scar, of this hurt, and so I think letting that go, and by letting it go, I'm not saying that you just dismiss what has happened, but critically, doing deep work emotionally, mentally, having to walk through a journey where the only person who can be an effective guide of that journey is not there to give you those answers. And so you kind of have to patch, and make a path for yourself, because my dad is the only person who can effectively give me the answers that I required. And so I had to do that work myself. And part of how I figured out how to walk this journey of forgiveness is going back to that first 15 years and honoring him. My faith calls me to honor my parents, and so I had to figure out what it looks like to honor him in his absence. It's easy for us to honor our parents when they're present, and sometimes we might even pretend because we're buying face, but it's harder to try and honor somebody in their absence, especially if they've messed you up. So part of my journey of forgiveness is that, man. How do I can't take anything away from the first 15 years. That man was a hero. For the first 15 years, that guy played his role well, and he did it justice, man. And I sit here today, and I still borrow some of those lessons that I learned in that training ground for the first 15 years, man. So that's how I've learned to just forgive, and constantly any opportunity I get to speak well about those first 15 years, because that's not a lie, it's true.
So the power of a present dad is kids get to learn by observation. And at times that type of learning is the most potent, because they see things on repeat, and consistency is very important for learning. My dad was also very, very present.
Shout out, man.
I remember we fished together when fishing was not a thing.
I mean, you black, bro.
He did.
Where did you fish in the hood?
we were actually living in Spruit. The family just moved from Tebogo.
Okay.
And my parents were finding their feet. So we put up a shack in Sluma. So that's the original Kasi. There's a Sluma view now.
Okay.
So that time, we used to, as boys, go hunt, and we'd hunt for for mice, and my mother would come back angry because we just hang these mice on the washing line.
That's crazy.
It's like a spit bride.
That's crazy.
and there was that mice in Biba.
With the lions.
With the lions, tasty. And those were my favorites. We learned hunting, and as kids,
that's fine.
But he then said, "Look, you know what? I don't think there's enough protein in Namibia. Let's go fish."
Get some fish.
And ever since I've had a liking for fish.
Come on, bro.
But you learn a lot when your dad is present. Right now, you're a husband. You have to be present as you said, in those dimensions, you know, how do you think your kids benefit from that presence? You're probably doing it better than your dad because you learned from it.
Sure. That's great, bro. You know, I found that, like, especially, you know, and I don't want to make this a racial thing, but, you know, I've only been black all my life. So I found, like, with the black experience, you know, for us, we were taught to, you know, be seen and not heard. And so I wrestled with the question, when was the time when I started influencing my parents and molding and shaping them? You know, when was it when they allowed themselves to be molded and changed and shaped by me, you know? And when I look back, I'm like, I was probably like in my late teens, you know? But when I was a kid, I don't think that they created an environment for me to chip into their lives, and, you know, and for them to allow themselves to have parts of their existence, character, their, you know, makeup being chipped away by me. And I say that to say that I've, you know, consciously done that from the time my daughter was born, where I don't sit anywhere thinking that I've arrived. You know, I don't think I've arrived as a husband. My wife would be the first person to tell you how flawed I am. You know, definitely not arrived as a dad. You know, I remember the day we brought my daughter back home. And, you know, first of all, when we left the hospital, I was just like, somebody has to stop us. A human, right? And I was like, man, like, is my mother gonna stop us? Is my mother-in-law? And they were just like, yo, man, let's go home, right?
The fun starts now.
Yeah, bro. No lie. We driving out of the hospital, and you get to the security, you know, gate, and they have to check, obviously, yeah, this is your kid, etc., etc. At that point, I thought, maybe this guy's gonna stop us.
Yeah.
Maybe this guy's gonna be like, who the hell is trusting you with a kid? Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, didn't stop us. We got home, and I remember looking at my kid thinking, oh, this is why my dad left.
Ish.
Because the amount of responsibility and the weightiness of having to keep her alive. And I'm like, man, for as long as I'm alive, like, she's gonna look to me, you know? And I was like, no justification for any man leaving at all. And I think if I have to put it bluntly, like, leaving is evil, man. Don't do that, you know? But it's at that moment I was like, yeah, I get it. Not justifying it, but I get why you would, you know? And I say that to say this again. After that, I turned to my wife and I said, hey, listen, if I'm gonna allow myself to be changed by this kid, it's one thing I want you to keep me accountable on is, let me not define my fatherhood by what it's not. And what I mean by that is, let me not look to my absent father and say I'm gonna try and correct all the things that he got wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, it's unfair on my kid. She doesn't know my dad. Sure. She wasn't part of my story in that regard. And so she and I are starting a new page. And I should, again, allow myself to be changed by her. And part of her changing me is chipping away some of that unforgiveness that I have towards my dad. And that's as far as my relationship with my father is going to affect her. And then in any other area, you know, I'm like, man, like, change me. You know, you small, yes, you young, you growing. I'm training, discipling you, wanting you to become, you know, a good citizen, just a decent human, you know. And I always say to my wife and my kid, like, I'm not raising a child, I'm raising an adult here. And so I need to think about the next 20 years and the world that she's gonna live in. And so when I give her those lessons, man, in real time, they come back to bite me quick. You know, I've taught her what's right and wrong. And now we're in the car and I'm driving and I'm shouting at somebody and she's like, oh, and now we shout at people. Dang it, right? Okay. So in that moment, I could just be like, shut up, I'm the dad here, right? Or I could be like, oh, smack, I've allowed myself to be changed by her. And right now, she's instant feedback and saying, you're not becoming the dad that you said you're gonna be. You're not becoming the human that you said you're gonna be. Because the kind of human that you claim to be is the kind of human you training me to be as well. So I'm taking lessons from you, so you can't now be hypocritical.
Yeah.
You know, so I think, man, allowing myself to be changed by my daughter, to be molded by her, has just been a painful thing, but such an incredible and rewarding thing, you know, because, you know, I can't pull the wool over my wife's eye. She's an adult like me, and she can call me out instantly. This one I can bribe. I can bribe with, ice cream. I can bribe her with Happy Meals, and I could pacify her. But I choose not to do that. And so in real time, man, it's hard. When she's mirroring or echoing the lessons that I'm giving her, and she's correcting me and calling me out. So it's painful, but I think, man, it's a beautiful thing. And it's that I can't do that if I'm not present. I can't do that if I'm only visiting on the weekends, because there's a lot of other crucial moments between her waking up and her going to sleep that I'm going to miss out on a lot, bro, So presence is such a gift. And I think anyone who misses out on that, intentionally especially, I get people have circumstances that might lead you in a place where you don't live with your kids. But if you're going to leave intentionally, man, you're robbing yourself. You're robbing yourself of life. You're robbing yourself of the kind of person that you can become. That's way better than the person you are right now. So yeah.
Sure. And talking about moments, our fathers flipped on us.
Yeah.
I remember grade 4. I was actually, my dad had taken me out of a Kasi school into a Model C school. Sure. And on the first day, we got there. It was a bit of a culture shock. People, the kids would actually, kiss their parents when they left in the morning. I never did that. It's my dad, Sure. But I knew he was affectionate, but not to that extent, But when in Rome, you got to do like the Romans. So I got out of the car. I went to his side, he dropped the window, and I was like, yes, as he flipped there.
Yes, sir, I'm laughing at you.
He was like, Tebogo, wait, Sandra. King here, wait, sir. I can't tell.
That's great.
I just stood there and said, no, man, give vibe muskolo. It's,
People kiss each other here, Dad.
And then he left. And when he fetched me, on the drive back home, he didn't talk the whole time, And he just pointed. I remember that stop sign. He just stopped and just pointed at me and said, "How long soon now? Now I could sue by
Sure.
And technically, I was not a munna.
You're a boy.
But I was like, I let it slide.
How did it make you feel?
No, awkward, because I'm a kid. I'm thinking, look, you wanted me to come here, so that's what they do.
Yeah.
Let's run with the script. And it didn't work. But other than that, no, I think
that's crazy, man.
One of the things is, while life happens, we are not aware of the impact, our fathers have on us, and the type of husbands we then become in the future. The lessons your father taught you, how do they show up as a husband in your marriage?
Yeah, man, I think, like I said at the beginning, my dad just loved my mom passionately in front of us. In front of me before my sisters were born. So man, that's one thing I just do hard in our house, and parents would, and there's a lot of reasons that have resulted, or rather a lot of things that have resulted in parents putting so much attention on our kids at the expense of our marriages. And I think we rob our kids of true love if we shower them with so much love and not shower our spouses, first and foremost, because I think it's the love that I have with my wife that pours down to my kid in ways that would benefit her than if one of us tries to take all that love that's meant for our spouse and we shower our kid with that. I think it's going to crush her because she's not ready for that. It's maybe if I put like a positive spin to what your dad said, you were not a man at that point when he called you to.
Yeah.
And so, but you'll find a lot of mothers who treat their sons as men. and they shower them with the kind of love that only a man can handle, and it crushes a little boy. And vice versa with us, you know, fathers who then take the same love that's meant for a woman, and I'm crushing my little girl with that kind of, she can't handle that. She needs the love of her father, not the love of her husband. She's not a wife yet, you know what I mean? And so you'll find parents who do that. And I'm like, man, you're killing your kid. Instead of focusing all your attention on your wife, and the residue that falls, you know, the drops that fall from the kind of love that you share, that's what is enough and sufficient for your kid, and it's actually going to shape them way better than if you do the other thing, you know. So that's what we've consciously done in our marriage, and not only in action, but like we reiterate that in words to our kid, you know. So I remember kissing my wife in front of my daughter for the first time, and she was like, "Yeah, what is this?" Right? And an interesting thing, I'm like, it's funny that, like, you know, she's 3 or whatever at that point. Nobody taught her that kissing is disgusting, but like we're so flawed as humans. I'm like this is love, and your first reaction is disgust, right? Anyway, I mean, like that's a whole other podcast. But I remember saying to her, like, this is not disgusting. Here's what's happening here, you know. And we care for each other, we love each other. Before you came, like, me and your mom were together, you know, and you actually are born from the love that we share. And there's, like, all of you matter, and all of us in this family matter, but there is an order, you know, God first, then mom, then you. And from mom's perspective, it's God, dad, then you, you know. And so we have to care for each other, and you have to help us to care for each other, because when we care for each other, we can care for you in better ways than if we just focus all attention on you, you know. And we explained that in, like, age-appropriate ways for, you know, 3-year-old at that point. She got it, it's fine. Fast forward, we go to a friend's house, and the ladies had gone out shopping for food. I'd stayed with the kids, with the dads. And so my wife walks in first. And as she walks in, she comes and sits on my lap and she kisses me. All the other kids are like, "Oh, that's disgusting." Guess who defends us? My daughter. She stands and says to all the other kids, "No, this is what love is.
Oh, wow.
This is what a mom and a dad are supposed to do.
Yeah.
And if you can see them love each other like this, then it's going to be good for us."
She's an advocate for love, though.
Bro, you see all the other kids are like, huh?
Yeah.
What is this? You know what I mean? And it's at that moment to, like, cool, man, like, she gets it, and this is good, you know. And then we realize that some of our friends just are not affectionate, you know. And so their kids are just also like, what's this weird stuff that's happening with these guys, right? But it's we need to love each other in that way, bro, so that our kids can truly have minds that, you know, are shaped by love, are shaped by affection, are shaped by just seeing what being a human looks like. And it's in the safety of their home with their parents who care for them. It's not going to be introduced by TikTok. It's not going to be introduced by their teachers. Definitely not going to be introduced by the streets, you know. And so I'm like, whenever anyone at school says anything around love, around boyfriends, or around sex, my daughter runs to us first. This is what this person said. Yo, what do you guys think about this? And we can correct that thing in real time and again reaffirm what true love looks like, and not only in words at that point, but then she knows because we demonstrate that. So long way to say that's one thing I got from my dad, man. You know, my dad cared for my mom in front of, and any room I went into, I knew, and it wasn't like out of arrogance. I was like, no other mother is loved like my mother here. No other woman is loved like my mom. You know, and I saw that from my dad, and that's why for me it's such an unfortunate privilege to have both sides, because I'm like, I saw it when it was good, and man, I tasted the bitter death, you know, when he had left, you know, and the poison that lingers, and I'm like, man, don't want that for myself, don't want that for anybody, bro. So and
I think kudos to you, that bad experience didn't change your view of the world. You know, you still committed to those values that you believe. It
forced me to actually want to be married more.
Oh, fantastic. No, it's good. You know, it's not kids, it's only the kids who say ew to kiss. You know, some wives do. They're like, kiss, but keep your tongue in your mouth.
Yeah. Or they're like, don't kiss me in public. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, you can't be affectionate in public. Anyway.
Yeah, keep your tongue.
Yeah.
You don't want to lace the saliva and caffeine.
You married all of me, woman.
Yeah. So in a relationship, you know, conflict is inevitable.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
In your work as a pastor, what's the best way to mend conflict, particularly between husband and wife?
Yeah. I think a couple of things there, man. Firstly, let's understand that the design of marriage is meant to change us. That's the thing we can't fight against. You know, let's not be in conflict with the design of marriage. I think as individuals, that's where the issue starts. We come in saying, you know, I'm TebZAR and I have my heritage, background, my values, my principles, and sometimes we say it overtly, but because we're polite South Africans, it's very subtle. No one's gonna change me, not even my wife, you know? And it's like, yeah, sure. Like, you're not with your wife and she hasn't postured herself to just change you, you know? But it's just the design of marriage. Marriage itself, by design, is meant to change both of you, and you guys just happen to be the instruments in the hands of marriage to change the other person, you know? If I've been married for 12 years and I expect to be the same guy, one, that's illogical, because even outside of marriage, I'm not the same person, just as an individual, you know? The guy I was at age 15 and the guy I am now close to my 40s is a totally different human. And I've embraced that change, you know? Some of it hasn't been easy, some of it is hard, but I've embraced all of that. But when it comes to marriage, I'm like, man, unlike any other relationship, this one is set to change you. It's designed to change you, and it has to change you, because once you get married, you are becoming one. And you know, people describe marriage as two worlds colliding. I'm like, it's actually two universes. It's not even two worlds. It's two universes with all its galaxies, all its mess, and you're coming with background, family stuff, you're coming with educational level, there's a bunch of things that you're coming in with, and you're supposed to find one universe, and man, that thing is a mess.
As long as it's not Star Wars. Right?
Yeah, and it becomes Star Wars, that's the thing, right? And you know, to your question of conflict, it becomes Star Wars. But if we first and foremost understand this thing is meant to change us, it helps us to lower our guards and not fight the design itself. But then secondly, when the Star Wars comes, we need to realize, okay, even if at that point my wife is the one who caused the conflict, or vice versa, I caused the conflict, we need to resolve that my spouse is not the enemy, but the issue that we're resolving is the enemy. And so we need to come together, because this one issue is a threat to our oneness. Unless we don't, you know, I always say to people, unless you consciously believe that your spouse is going to murder you, which if you do, you shouldn't have married them in the first place. But generally, your spouse is not waking up thinking, how can I kill this person today, right? But when you're in conflict, that's the first thing you think. This person just wants to destroy me, blah, blah, blah. And so then we defend ourselves. And I'm like, man, just remember, you're not the enemy, she's not the enemy. The issue that you guys are fighting is the enemy. And you both need your faculties, you need your energy, you need your talents, your skill, your resolve to fight this thing together, you know? And so for me, those would be the first priorities, man. This thing's gonna change us. My spouse is not the enemy. And then after that, I say every couple needs to develop a fighting style. If you don't develop your fighting style, your marriage is doomed. Why? Because if we use the example of a house or metaphor of a house, every house needs to have some way to clean the dirt. You know, some people get a helper, some people have a list of chores. You want to clean the kitchen, you do dishes, you do whatever. Or if you have money, pay for people to do that stuff. But every family has to find a way to clean the house. Similar thing with marriage. You have to find a way to clean your marriage. And that's your fighting style. And so your fighting style is, you can talk about it before, man, this is what makes me upset, and I tend to be loud when I get upset. Or I'm reserved, so I'm the kind of person who wants to go think first about the issue before I come and talk about the thing, My wife wants to deal with the thing immediately. I'm one of those dudes who are like, man, I need to go process the thing. So we could talk about those personality traits, and then you add that into your bag as your fighting style, and then you have to always take stock after you've fought. Have to. Most couples don't. We fight. After we fight, we're like, yeah, we escaped that. Like, I'm keeping quiet, I'm not gonna take stock. And I'm like, man, you missed out you wasted a good fight. Take that you fought and say, hey man, I actually didn't like it when you called me this word. I thought that was a bit harsh. Okay, so I know that like in our fighting style, I shouldn't use harsh words. Maybe I didn't even know that I have that issue, right? So I need to change. Again, design of marriage is going to change you. And now in real time, as you're taking notes from your previous fight, that thing is changing. You know what I mean? So then we put the notes in there. How do we then recover from how we fought? And I think it's in that you'll develop your fighting style, then you develop a fighting culture, and then you'll have a fighting language. So recently, me and my wife have started to notice that there's certain words that we use in a fight that are just not helpful. So one of the phrases I use is, "You're not listening," right? Or drives my wife insane. And so I've caught myself a couple of times saying, oh, smack, I'm not supposed to say that. All right, cool. Let me pause. You are listening, you are hearing me. This is what I'm trying to say, right? And so it's then finding, again, your fighting language, fighting style, fighting culture, that it will help you in how you resolve conflicts moving forward. A marriage that doesn't have conflicts is a dead marriage.
Sure.
Dead.
It's dead.
It's dead, bro.
So at the center of it is, willingness to clean, like you said.
Yeah.
And having an open mind.
Yeah.
That's what keeps a marriage going.
Yeah. We are gonna fight. It's not it's not a matter of if. It's when. We are gonna fight, and we're probably gonna fight more. So it's it's couples who will spend money on, we have a holiday fund, or we're gonna buy this car, and I'm like, you need to spend energy on how you're gonna clean your house, because best believe, like, there's gonna be a lot of dirt.
Yeah.
Because you got married in your 20s, 30s, or whatever. If I got married in my 20s, that's 25 years of dirt that I come in with. Complication, complexity, ambitions, failed dreams, dad who walked out, mom who's, single woman who had to raise 3 kids, craziness of film school. I come in with all of that stuff, my exes, my sexual history. So I come in with all of that stuff. And I'm somehow supposed to believe that, my wife has been waiting for this angel who's gonna change her life. I'm gonna be an addition to her life, and she needs me. Except I'm like, no, there's 25 years of good, bad, and ugly that I come in with. And that stuff is gonna seep, and find holes, bro, to come affect this thing that we are building. So if I don't go in saying, I need a way to clean this mess when it comes, I'm doomed. Because it's gonna come.
I love that metaphor. Clean your house, husbands. And the husband also has a role to clean. It's not just the wife that cleans.
And I would even say that the husband is probably the number one cleaner.
Because they make the most mistakes.
That too. But we're supposed to lead, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, if you're not gonna lead, man, like it's, and here's the thing, there's a whole lot of other spiritual, things that we could say, or even like societal benefits of why men are supposed to lead in the household. But man, like that thing is sexy, bro. Like leading, that thing is hot, bro. Your wife doesn't find you attractive because you're not leading, dog. That thing is hot, bro. I'm like, when my wife sees me as a leader, turns her on, bro. Like, and I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, a pastor. So he's going through the Songs of Solomon, and it's like, man, it's so interesting that in the whole Bible, God does not leave us a manual to say, this is what you need. Here's a lecture of how to keep your marriage on fire. But it just gives you a whole book, and the one recipe in that book is, just love her heart, man. Oh Lord, but she's not love her heart. But she called me an idiot. Love her heart. Right? And I'm like, man, and it's gonna require leadership for you to love your wife hard. And once you do that, bro, your sex is gonna be on fire, and that thing is gonna glue you guys together, and it's gonna help you to just clean the house even better, man. You know what I mean? Like once you've had a good session, spring cleaning is amazing, bro.
Lovely. So here's a public service announcement. That men's conference that's forever happening, I nominate Blaque to lead us. Like he said.
I came to your point to just get pressure. That's why I came. I see you, bro.
I know, man. We love your story. We love your story.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Do you find when you counsel couples, are there couples that are just not compatible, irrespective of how well-intentioned they are? Yeah. Or is that just a misnomer?
Man, bro, I love that question because every time I'm asked about compatibility, it just gives me an opportunity to kind of clear the air. I think we've stripped, ripped, robbed, put to death the true meaning of compatibility. If you Google compatibility now, you'll see Google will just give you product language, and that's in fact how we've treated compatibility. Because I always ask, here's a couple, husband and wife. When this one asks the question of compatibility, the question I ask them is, who's the standard? And the standard is always you, because you never ask, is this person compatible with, the kind of man I'm becoming? Or the kind of marriage that I believe we're gonna have in the future. But you always the standard. With your brokenness, with all your flaws, is this person compatible to me? And so I'm like, if we treat compatibility like that, you are gonna change. So if you change, what does that mean? Inevitably, the standard of compatibility changes, and you'll put pressure on your spouse to always be following your standard that's changing of compatibility. And if she's doing the same thing, you guys are never gonna find each other. If you earn 10 Rand, your pockets are compatible to buy a car that's worth $10. But once you get 20 Rand, your pockets are now compatible with a car that's worth $20. And so that's what I'm saying with compatibility, that we've stripped what its original meaning is, and we've just now used it in this product, with this product terminology or product language. And so then you start treating people like products. If you buy your first generation model of whatever car, once that is no longer compatible to your needs, you have to change it. And the manufacturer has to produce another car that's compatible to your needs at that point. And that's why I'm like, man, we can't treat humans like that. I can't treat my wife like that. She's evolving, she's changing, I'm changing as well. And so we kind of need a standard that's outside of ourselves, that we both need to be compatible to, and that standard for me has to be our oneness and where it is that we believe our marriage is going. So if we don't have a vision for where our marriage is going, I don't think we can even speak about compatibility, because we always gonna try and pull each other towards each other. And I'm like, man, my wife is a bad standard of what being the perfect wife is. I'm a bad standard of what being the best husband is. So I'm like, man, we need standards that are outside of ourselves and our oneness. The kind of marriage we want, is this going to be the marriage where our kids flourish? Is this the kind of marriage where those around us in our community, and now with our podcast, people who are watching us, will they benefit from that? Is that the kind of marriage we want? In simple terms. If that's the marriage we want, okay. The question I ask about compatibility every single day, am I compatible to that vision? Is she compatible to that vision? Not me. You know what I mean? The original word, compatibility, actually has two words. And the two words there is long suffering or enduring suffering, right? And I think that is what true compatibility is. Am I willing to endure and suffer for this oneness that's outside of ourselves? And if that's the case, sure, I want to be compatible, because that's the thing I'm going to be striving for all the time. This marriage that I believe is not only going to be beneficial for us, our kids, but it's also going to be beneficial for the world. That's the thing that it's going to cause a lot of suffering in me, man. If I'm going to be the kind of man that's going to show up to be that, then I have to die to myself. Then I have to, ask for forgiveness when I don't want to. Then I have to develop my fighting style. Then I have to develop my fighting language. Then I have to fight for the moments when there's no intimacy, and I have to fight for that, because I know intimacy is good for gluing us and it's building us towards this one vision, That's what true compatibility is. And I think right now, society, as people, we're so self-involved that compatibility has become about me, my standards, my needs, and then I'm forcing you as my spouse to somehow succumb to who I am and what I want. And I'm like, man, that's a very low bar. We need a high bar standard that's outside of ourselves. Are we compatible to that? Are we suffering towards that? Are we enduring towards that? And once we have that, I think, bro, then compatibility would change and would be used appropriately, and it would be the gift and tool to help a lot of marriages last longer.
Yeah. A lot of wives now are working jobs far more demanding than their mothers worked.
Yep.
Could easily put pressure on the marriage.
Yep.
The role of men
Yeah.
in a changing landscape, because the market's being open.
Yeah, sure.
How do men reinvent themselves such that they do not feel intimidated by their wife's success?
That's good, bro. I think there's a friend of mine who wrote an article called "The Great Divorce," how industrialization impacted the household. And so I bring that to say this, that at no point should I allow what happens in corporate SA to define what happens in my house. I want my wife to be as successful as she wants to and dream as far as, and part of my building a marriage that's going to be good for our kids and the world around us is championing my wife and her dreams, But at no point, if my wife somehow is, CEO of some Fortune 500 company, will I allow that to define and determine what happens in our household. When she comes home, she's a wife, right? In fact, in our own story, we were friends with my wife for 5 years, solid friends. The thought of dating was disgusting. We both vomited at that. When people are like, you guys look good together, we're like, oh, sucks, right? And then we got in, so we went from friends, and then I asked her to be my wife. I didn't ask her to date. And we only stayed engaged for a year because I had quit my job and I was in between, jobs. And we just both agree that, listen, it doesn't matter how much I bring, but as a man, I need to, and that's the role that we believe a man is supposed to play in the household. Even if I bring 2 cents, but I need to be contributing to the financial well-being of our household. My wife could, and my wife was working at that point, she had money. And we were like, we're not doing this because that's what we believe, that doesn't matter what happens and where we go fish for our money, but in the household, the husband needs to at least bring, even if it's 2 cents, even if the wife brings $1 million a month, but we want the husband to still and we wanted to honor that. We believe our faith calls us to do that. And so at no point have we allowed what happens outside to dictate, and then with that in mind, I think because of the pressures that society has placed on the household, men have suddenly found the wrong enemy, and the enemy has been our female counterparts. So just because women are progressing outside the household and they're getting all these opportunities, and we feel done by corporate and the world, etc., then we suddenly think, here's our enemy. And I'm like, man, that's the wrong enemy. Right? The enemy we need to be fighting is ourselves, right? It's men who build society. It's men who at some point, decide to give opportunities to women, et cetera, and for good reasons, for bad reasons, whatever. But if we are going to be the kind of men who stand up, even with this demanding and changing world, man, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Where do you need to improve? Where do you need to get better? And I think the one thing that I would start with now is just even changing that mindset. Like, my wife is not my enemy, even if she earns 5 times more than me, right? My sister is not my enemy. No female counterpart is my enemy. Man, there might be things in me that, one, I need to work on. And it's not that these things are somehow going to change the landscape of society now, but they're going to help me show up as a better man than I am right now. Right now, I'm despondent, I'm disillusional, I feel disheartened because I think I'm done by society, but I need to change my mentality, and therefore, that's going to help me show up and become, I think, a better man, regardless of how small or big my pockets are. I cannot find value in whether I have money or not, but I need to find value in who I am showing up to be. Can my kids find me as somebody who's dependable? When you call me to come to the podcast, are you freaking out like, this guy's probably going to come here drunk, or he's just not going to show up on time? Am I responsible? Am I dependable? It doesn't matter what car I drive. It doesn't matter how small or big my pockets are in some sense. But I think men of valor, men of character, men who will build a society that's not just, based on how much money we have, which we need money. Don't get me wrong. Like, we wanna make money. But man, I don't think that we should, just lay the value or our worth on that alone. And so I think once we change that, bro, it'll move us away from I think we identified the wrong enemy. Like, my wife is not my enemy, bro. Yeah.
Common misconceptions about emotional vulnerability between husband and wife?
Common misconceptions, bro. One, that men can't be. I think that's a misconception. I think, especially with the podcast, but even in my own friendships, I found that we can press each other's buttons that our wives can't, and I could get you to open in ways, and so I think to say that men are not vulnerable is a misconception, number one. But even though I can press certain buttons in you, I shouldn't. I think you need to go lay out the manual for your wife and say, again, I'm a different universe, and you're a different universe. And so when you sit with other women, you guys can get each other, us as men can get each other. But when we come together, we kind of need to exchange manuals and help each other with the kind of buttons that we need to press so we both open up and become vulnerable. I think vulnerability is contextual. Vulnerability outside the confines of marriage is dangerous, especially for the man. Because when we hear vulnerability, we perceive it as military language. When an army uses the word vulnerability, if a general says, we have a vulnerability, he would send troops to cover that vulnerability because he knows that's where the enemy is going to attack. And so in the mind of a man, when we hear vulnerability, that's what we think. We've given you carte blanche access to our soul, and you're going to destroy us. And so what do? We cover up, we hide, we don't become vulnerable, but it's within the confines of a loving, committed, long-term, I'm here until one of us dies, we're not leaving type of marriage. Then you're supposed to open up and be vulnerable because, man, you're going to show up in better ways than you can ever imagine if you give your wife carte blanche access to your soul in that regard, And I always say vulnerability is like, again, if I use the example of a house, vulnerability is saying, come inside the house, touch the furniture, touch my father wounds, touch my insecurities, touch, my longings, my failure, sit here, be here, move furniture around. That's vulnerability. But what we need for the world is transparency. I've been transparent with you this whole time. I haven't been vulnerable. Transparency says, I'm not going to open the door for you to come in and touch the furniture, but I can open the window, open the curtains, and you can see the contents of the house inside. So I've been transparent. Told you my dad, told you about my daughter, I've told you about my wife, but only my wife gets the key to come into that house and sit on that chair and be like, how does this dad thing feel? Okay, how does this being a father thing with your daughter feel? Can I move things here? Okay, can I put this thing there? And I've given her that access. That's vulnerability. And therefore, anywhere else I show up, because me and my wife are doing that work, man, I'm better for it, bro. I am better for it. I don't show up today and speak to you the way I'm speaking to you if my wife doesn't move furniture within my soul, you know what I mean? And that's what true vulnerability is. And I think one misconception is men can't be, and I think that's it. We are vulnerable creatures. But secondly, we can't be vulnerable with the world. We have to be vulnerable with our wives, but be transparent with the world. You know what I mean? Yeah.
A lot of people tend to think, they grow apart, and obviously that, gives a wedge in the marriage. The conception of growing apart, does it happen because interests all of a sudden change? Life goals change, and that growing apart is a big threat to marriages. How do people grow together? And this journey that they took off to go to point B or final destination. How do we make sure that one party doesn't say, you know what, we had a pit stop, I'm not coming back, thank you, cheers, bye.
Sure. That's hard, bro. I think it goes back to that thing we spoke about on compatibility. Once I'm the standard, at some point, my standards are going to change. And once you're not compatible with those standards, then I'm going to get to the pit stop and tell you it's time to get off the bus, because I need somebody who's compatible with the kind of person I am at that point. You were compatible with me when we started, and now it's 5 years in, I need somebody else who's compatible, So one, we need a standard that's outside of ourselves. And how do we not get despondent is having that oneness, having that vision, and that's the thing that we both working towards. We at the altar we say I do, and they say, we pronounce your husband and wife, what God has put together, let no man, put apart. So there's a declaration that you are one. But in practical real time, we are becoming one. So in our finances, we are becoming one. In our sex, we are becoming one. In our affections, we're becoming one. In our hates, we are becoming one. In shared failures, we are becoming one. And so we need to fight for that oneness. And I always say to couples, one, fight against this compatibility thing, or redefine it the way it actually originally was. Secondly, fight for oneness. And then thirdly, when you get to a point where you feel like, yeah, man, I've tapped out, you were bored. And there's nothing boring about universes colliding. You lost interest. And the reason why you lost interest is because you've lost curiosity. When you were dating, you're curious. Both of you, and you know this, but you're not going to say it, both of you bring the best representative when you're dating. So it's the guy who's more polite, you're opening the doors, you're very meek, she's, she comes face beat, just perfume is on point, blah, blah, blah. But there's the real you that's in the closet. After you say I do and you come back from honeymoon, you pack all your honeymoon clothes and you open the closet and the real TebZAR comes out, and vice versa with your wife. And then it's like, oh, smack, this is what I'm dealing with. This you.
the raw material, the finished goods.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, man, this is... And so at that point, I say to couples, if your curiosity does not peak, man, sit down, shut everything down, work on that thing. Because when the real version of my wife walks out of the closet and my version walks out of the closet, if we're both not curious about these people, man, we're going to be bored and it's going to suck. And then I'm going to start using words like compatibility, they're not compatible with me. Again, you're not an angel that was dropped, from heaven. You came here perfect to fix my life, and I'm not that for you as well. But there should be a level of curiosity. I'm like, oh, smack, oh, this is you. Okay. Oh, this is what made you act this way. So me and my wife have these things we call 3 a.m. chats. We literally speak till the AMs, and we had one of those long 3 a.m. chats in December. I mean, we've had several after that, but this December one is relevant for this point I'm making. And again, me and my wife have been in each other's life for 18 years as well. Friends 5 years, engaged for 1, been married for 12 now, and she's heard the story of my dad. She's heard, every single thing, blah, blah, blah. But vulnerability again, she's in the house, and I'm showing her the furniture, the texture of the stuff. And so what we did in one of those 3 a.m. conversations, I literally walked her down like routes me and my dad would drive. So your fishing story, for example, And then what we decided to do is the following day, we all got in the car, the 3 of us, my wife, me, and my daughter, and we drove those same routes. So I'm like, this is where I would drive with my dad. Oh, this is the big house he used to point us to say this is the kind of house we'll live in one day. I remember we stopped at that petrol station and we'd buy whatever, Tropica and chips, and just walking her through that. And so all of that to say, that's curiosity. So she presses into like, oh, okay, cool. So this is why this dad thing rocks you the way it rocks you. Oh, this is why you're showing up the way you're showing up. This is why you would do the podcast this way, et cetera, et cetera. But she saw the real me and she became curious. And I did the similar thing for her, So she comes from the burbs, I come from the hood. She comes from a family of 3 people. Her dad died when she was 5. And for me, Christmas in the hood, it's a big affair.
It's huge.
It's huge. It's new clothes, and you just parade your new clothes around the hood. But the older I grew, the more I'm like, I don't want to do that, So then like on Christmas, I would go back to the hood, like probably at like 7 p.m. Because even then, that's when the party is pumping, Greet the uncles, greet the aunts, groove, 10 o'clock, I'm driving back home, right? And so when we got married, my wife would make it a thing that we need to go to her family during the day, And I'm like chilled. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, let's go, right? We go, eat, gammon, fancy food and whatever, and then we go to the hood and we party, right? And then like the years went by, and then I'm realizing like my wife makes a big deal about Christmas. It's such a big thing. And one year we fought about, why we're not gonna spend so many hours at this house, et cetera, et cetera. Long story to say, then I discovered things about her family and why Christmas is so important for them as a family. Again, growing up with just the 3 of them, lost dads at an early age. I didn't even know my wife's dad's birthday was closer to Christmas. And this is a person that I was friends with for a solid 5-6 years. I'd been to her house, her mother knows me. I just didn't even know that one detail. But when her real self came out of the closet, I became curious. I didn't push that back, And it's even in those moments that she discovers things about my childhood, I discover things about her childhood, that man, our oneness becomes even tighter. So at that point, bro, there's no way I'm gonna be disillusional because there's more to discover. I'm not gonna be bored. I'm not gonna, get to a point where I'm like, it's time for me to check out because I am catching up with 24 years that I wasn't in her life, before we got married. So be curious, man.
Sure.
Step in. This is another universe. You know your own universe. Invite her. Show her the things. Let her show you, her universe, her planets, what's, et cetera, et cetera. And I think you won't grow despondent, bro. Yeah.
And the last, question.
Sure.
What currently fulfills you about being a husband?
Sure. Man, that's big. The current thing that fulfills me now is hearing my wife say I'm doing better in a particular area, because that would mean that I've admitted that I'm weak in that area, which is hard for me to do, and I think it's hard generally for most men to do, so whenever there's insecurity in the house, women want security, we risk takers. And whenever there's instability, insecurity, they freak out more. And so our default is to try and cover that insecurity. Even though we know behind the scenes, man, things are falling apart and we're holding stuff together, but just so that my wife could feel secure. But I've gotten to a point where I'm like, yeah, I'm actually weak in that area. And it's me admitting my weaknesses and acknowledging my limitations, that I'm actually getting to flourish and thrive. I always use the example of a park to kind of illustrate this point. Somebody can see the fence around the park as a limitation because you want the park to not have a fence so that you can run everywhere. But I'm like, there's cars, you're gonna die. So the fence enables you as a parent to sit and relax as your child runs around the park, and they can fully enjoy all that the park brings to them just because there is that limitation. And so my limitations are there so that I can fully become the person that I'm intended to be, and my wife and my kid can enjoy me. Because if I didn't acknowledge my limitations, I'd be risky. I'd be risky, I'd be dangerous, you know. I wouldn't know when I'm supposed to stop, where my flaws are, where I actually don't have strength. I would lead my family in areas where I am totally weak in, and I would abandon them because I don't have the strength to carry them there. But because I know my limitations, I can say, yo, I'm not going there, and I'm not good at this thing. So my wife as my helper can help me in that thing. You know, man, I'm not good at budgeting. Okay, so let's sit down. My wife comes from a family of accountants, and we both artists. You know, so I'm like, but you have more experience in handling money than me, so help me in that area. Yes, I'm supposed to know what happens with every rand in this house, but like, man, you just have a better, you know, acumen when it comes to handling money. Help me there, I'm weak. So I think the thing I'm enjoying now is just hearing my wife say, man, like, you've improved in this area, you've improved in that, because then I'm like, oh, okay, cool, like, I can expose more of my weaknesses, you know, because of how she's handled the weaknesses I've already shared with her. You know, she's helping me, but she's also acknowledging the growth that she's seeing there. So, man, I'm enjoying that, man, and it's just, it helps me to take my cape off, because as husbands we want to be superheroes, you know, and I'm like, Superman took his cape off at home, man.
So, oh, he did?
Yeah. Batman doesn't wear a mask at home. Like, take that thing off, bro. Yeah. So.
And your final message to, you know, husbands to be.
Yeah.
And those husbands that, the pressure of life, you know, has taken the source out of the marriage.
Man. Yeah, that's tough, bro. Husbands to be, don't be despondent. There's a lot of us who are married who have worn the jersey but have played a very poor game, and so you hate marriage or you're scared of marriage because you've seen dudes like me who have not done it right. So marriage is good, you know. We're all flawed humans, and sometimes we'll act as hypocrites, but there's nothing wrong with the institute or the gift of marriage. You know, there's everything wrong with the people who are married, and marriage is helping fix us. But don't look at marriage and be discouraged. Don't look at marriage and be despondent. I think we find ourselves in a time in our culture where a lot of young men don't see the value of marriage. And I think marriage is very valuable. And in fact, if you want to be a man, get married. Get married. That thing is going to sharpen your manhood. That thing is going to force you to show up in ways that no other relationship would have brought out of you, you know. So there's going to be a lot of self-denial. There's going to be a lot of self-sacrifice, a lot of dying to self. And I think we need those kind of men in the country that we live in, you know. So get married, man. Find a good girl. And by a good girl, I don't mean she meets all your standard, but man, the big things of life, you guys agree, you know. Whatever it is that you believe, I don't care what religion you are, find somebody who shares the same values as whatever, you know, whatever religion you are. But then she believes the same thing you believe about family. She believes the same thing you believe about money. At least fundamentals. And then let life take care of all this other stuff. You know, find a girl like that, and you know, don't be disillusioned by, or even deceived rather, by beauty. You know, like she'll be hot now, but she's gonna be 50 one day, my boy. And so I'm not saying don't find somebody you're not attracted to, but don't lose out on a good girl because she's not hot. You know, beauty fades, man. But if you find a solid one, lock that thing in and go. For guys who are married, man, like, yo, hold on. Watch the pod. Watch the podcast, because I've realized that many husbands don't have a community of guys that they can share conversations like these with. And so every Wednesday at Hoppers 11, you will get two husbands who are speaking about their marriages open, honestly, and they want to help you, you know. So watch the pod. There's a lot of lessons there to help you, especially if you're at a point where the juice has been sucked out of your marriage and you feel like, man, I can't continue. And then community is important, and I'm not just plugging myself. So we'll provide community for you, but that community is virtual. Find other dudes around you, even if it's one. Find another husband, and not a husband where you like, this guy's a clown like me, you know, like, and or his views about marriage are just, you know, just warped. Find a dude where you like, man, like I want to model my marriage after this guy. Older man, you know, who's been in the game for a while, and just and make sure that your wife has direct access to that guy. So go and say to that guy, man, I want to be like you as a husband. So help me, and I want my wife to have direct access. So that when you acting out, your wife can call this guy. But vice versa, when you're doing well, this guy can call your wife as well and just be like, yo, like just be easy on him or whatever the thing is, you know, at that point. And hopefully that guy's wife as well will be involved in your guys' relationship. But I think we need guys who've gone before us, man. And that's the thing that's helped me, you know. Sure.
Bro,
man,
thank you for your time.
Appreciate this, brother.
That was a master class.
Far from it. I'm gonna watch this back and be like, damn it.
I was on a roll.
Shouldn't have said that, man.
Good thing he had some caffeine.
Yeah. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, but guys, thank you for watching. I might be wearing shades, but I'm not shady. I want to be that husband. God bless.